Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Get ready for Talking Heads, the show where expert insights meet world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Brought to you by USA Global TV and Radio. Meet our distinguished presenters. From the great state of Texas, longevity expert, award-winning author, publisher, and distinguished Toastmaster, Red O'Loughlin. From London, England, soul heart awakener, novelist, vocal coach, and artist, Dr. Madeline Chan. Also from England, the Harley Street stress expert, therapist, ambassador for peace, and speaker, Carolyn Heward. And from Australia, ICF PCC credentialed coach, entrepreneur, and leadership coach, Mariska Dupria. Experience their expertise, connect with their wisdom, and transform your perspective. Watch Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. This video and its contents are the property of USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. Visit usaglobaltv.com for more details.
Howdy, y'all. Red O'Loughlin here. We're on Talking Heads today on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Normally, my programs are focusing around health and wellness, education, but part of this program on Talking Heads is hope and inspiration. And today I'm taking a slightly different twist. Rather than talk about health and wellness, I'm going to talk about a trip my wife and I took almost 10 years ago, back about 2015. Our church had a fairly active summer program where we would go there and watch movies and have food and entertain, and it was a nice diversion from everything. One of the movies we saw was something called The Way. Let me go ahead and get this thing set up here where we can talk about this at the same time. I have 3 different slideshows today because I couldn't get everything on one. But The Way is a movie by Martin Sheen, and it's about walking the Camino de Santiago. And my wife and I saw this, and we said she was absolutely against doing anything because as we took our 8th honeymoon. We went back to a place where we were married in Texas, where we spent our honeymoon up at Hemisphere in San Antonio. And over that course of about 7-8 days, we kind of both of us talked ourselves into, no, let's just maybe try to do it. She wanted a private room, private bath every night. She didn't want to live in a hostel. She's never going to be one that's living in a tent. So I said, okay, fine. I think we can probably do a hotel room every night, private room, private bath. And for the program we were on, that literally happened every time except for once. And that was one of those unplanned episodes that just could not be avoided. But anyway, we saw this movie and we started thinking about it. We can do that. And so we started practicing. We got the shoes. We got everything we started needing. And we'd go out and we'd walk 5, 6, 7 miles. And we do this for the better part of a year. And so by the time we finally got ready to go, we visited our son in Virginia. And then we jumped on a space-safe flight over the road to Spain, took a train up to Madrid, took a bus over to Pamplona, and then the next morning we took another bus into southwestern France. And that was the beginning of the Camino de Santiago for us. Now, for those who are not aware of it, it's a pilgrimage that many people have done, popes and kings and all sorts of people. And when we were doing it in 2016, there's about 250, 300,000 people doing it a year. Obviously, it went down with the COVID pandemic. I think it's back up again. But it's 500 miles, 800 kilometers. and we did it in 30 days. So, Spain, the place north of Madrid there in the center is the area that we primarily concentrated on, and there's the actual path. So we started in southwestern France and walked over the Pyrenees Mountains down to Pamplona, where we had parked a couple, 3 nights before, and then continued our journey walking all the way across Spain. Let me get here. The elevation changes quite a bit from where we were at to where we ended up going. So on the left-hand side, we went from literally almost sea level there in France up. And that first day was an absolute nightmare. It was just never ending, going up, 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 up. We live in Houston, Texas. All our walking was done on the flat land. Now, in retrospect, I'd say if I were doing it again, I'd be on an incline machine all day long, or I'd find a place that had some hills, because those hills absolutely killed us for about the first 10 days, actually longer than that. But you can see how the hills and the valleys and everything else was in there. Some places, going downhill is not as easy as people think, especially when you got the first week or so we had backpacks on. And then after that, we started paying somebody to take them. They had a service there. But you can see us there with our backpacks. And we started in late August, and we ended in just about the end of September. And then we took a few extra days, did some more sightseeing in and around Compostela de Santiago. I do not speak any Spanish. I speak enough that I consider myself a tourist. I can call on the phone, make a reservation, get in a taxi cab, go somewhere, order food. I can handle myself fairly well, but I'm not fluent in it, but I understand, I can read it. And so for what we did, my Spanish was okay. We started out, and the Pyrenees were in the background. We started out in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France. And when we left there, it was really a very nice, comfortable trip. But it didn't take long whatsoever before we started getting into the hills. These hills are really nothing. They were fairly flat, even a couple places to eat and enjoy ourselves. Few places along the way, we actually had to walk along on the edge of the freeway. I'm going to say of the total 500 miles, there's probably less than 10 miles that we actually had to be on the road with vehicles. Most of the time we were on old Roman roads that were built 2,000 years ago, and the remnants of those roads are what we walked on. Now, you have a little bit of water on the right-hand side there. We're walking beginning to walk into the Pyrenees Mountains. The path we are on right there is literally a path. Again, I started out thinking, my whole focus is, what am I walking on? That to me was my whole focus. So when I'm writing my book with these pictures in it, the road more traveled is what I want to name the book, kind of a play on the road less traveled, because so many people walk this. Now, it turned out that there was a couple that had been lost for 10 days walking this particular path, and they were recommending people not take it. Well, we never got the word. There's 2 paths leaving France, one that goes straight up over the mountain immediately, and one that goes along the side for a while and then goes up and over. We chose the one that was not as intensive immediately. So, and believe it or not, that's actually a path. It doesn't look like it. And that's why I took a picture of it, because we're walking in there and the weeds and everything, it's interesting how things change, but there was enough of a path, maybe a foot wide, that we knew we were walking on something that other people had walked on. And ironically, for the first day, we literally didn't see anybody at all until we got toward the very, very end. There's a 3,000-foot climb into Roncesvalles, Spain. That was our first destination. And as we're going in, the paths sometimes get a little wider, and then sometimes they just start going up, and then they turn back and forth, switch back and forth here, there, and yonder. And we were having a fair challenge. In fact, I had a lot of water with me. I thought I was in pretty good shape. I did not have any GPS. I did have my phone that I found out later that I could have put a program in that would have given me, well, how much further do I have to go? Well, that was one of those unknowns the first day because we were amateurs. We had the intention of being a pilgrim, not knowing where we're going to be spending the night. We just knew that was our destination. And in most cases, that's what happened. After 7 days, we changed our opinion. We still became pilgrims, but we had a better plan. Again, as you're moving through the countryside, scenery changes a bit. The road got a little bit wider, a little cooler sometimes in the morning. Sometimes we had extra jackets to wear. Things cool, warm up a little bit, and things were fine. But end of August, beginning of September, temperatures rose, I mean, significantly. We're talking about low hundreds, 102, 104 were not unusual. We get into a city at 5 o'clock in the afternoon because we didn't get up early. And I'm knocking on doors trying, do you have a room? Do you have a room? Do you have a room? And no, don't have a room. And so finally I said, I have a book here. I have hotels all along the way. Let me call and see if I can get a reservation. So after about a week, I started calling. I asked them in the best Spanish that I could, did they have a room? If they did, how much was it? I gave them my name. I did not have to give them a credit card or anything. And so they would have a reservation. And I would have our bags sent for about $4, $4 to $6. I could have my bags sent ahead so that all I had to do was carry a day pack with some things that we needed. And then our bags were sitting in the hotel or in the room when we got to our destination. Again, we're walking on the side here. You can see a bit of a road there. We're not actually walking on the highway. But the scenery changes significantly. Sometimes you're right in the middle of a large city, 1 million people. Other times you're out in the middle of nowhere. Now, the roads are marked so that you don't go down the wrong roads often. I think we had 3 times where we got lost because we didn't catch the next marker. And the markers are close enough together that it gives you confidence that, okay, I'm still on the right path. And I think once in the daytime, we just took the wrong, we weren't paying attention. 2 other times in the early morning hours, we don't know where we're going. Sometimes one time we were with a large group and 3 people went off in different directions trying to find this particular blue symbol with it's a seashell. Sometimes the roads are washed out a little bit, and that becomes a little bit more treacherous. We had canes. Sometimes we had 1 cane out. Most of the time we had 2, just to kind of keep us stable. Outside of Pamplona, this is I think our 3rd night after we left France. We're getting to the place we had been the night before we started everything. And again, most everything sort of uphill, and then some places extremely uphill. Old Roman bridge, a lot of those had traffic on them, the cars. Got into Pamplona, and they would bring us in the old part of town as opposed to the new part. So we were pretty much in that old historical section of town wherever we were at. Another Roman bridge. An early morning departure. We got smart. We needed to leave early because we wanted to be at our destination at 2 o'clock in the afternoon rather than 5 or 6 o'clock. We could take a shower, get cleaned up, take a nap, go out and eat. So my wife is there with her canes, and we're walking on the sidewalk leaving town early in the morning. We saw this kind of scene so many times. You can walk over the top of a hill. There's a road that we're walking on, and we run across people all the time. In fact, they ran across us. We never passed anybody the whole time we were there. Most of the time, it was our pace was such a slow pace. We never got hurt, but we ran into a lot of people with a lot of problems, foot and leg problems. Okay, I'm at the end of the first set of slides, so let me see if I can bring up the second set here. And let's see here. Okay. Okay, slides. Let's see, I think it's that one there is the one I want. Yes. Okay, that's the one I want. The one section that we came across, it was a canal. I mean, it went for miles and miles, and the only place you could cross it was at certain junctions. And so we walked maybe 2 miles down to this particular junction, crossed over to the other side. It was nice to actually see some water, because most of the time everything we saw was absolutely dry. You can see the towns in the background there on the left-hand side. You can see some of the buildings as you come up to them. I think about 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers, about as far as we could actually see buildings. I could see, in some cases, actual windows in some of them. But I took a lot of pictures. I got a lot of grief from people about seeing my wife's butt all the time on, I think I took 3,500 photographs. And a lot of times my wife walked slower than I did. So I would stop, let her catch up with me. I'd let her get far enough ahead. I would take pictures, relax for a minute, and then take off again. My gait was slightly faster than hers. And so over the course of time, I would pass her. I'd get far enough ahead, and then I'd come back. And there are periods of time that we just, both decided to walk together. But it's difficult sometimes to walk at a pace of someone else's. Another city that we walked through, you can see the road for cars on the left and the Roman road, or it used to be a Roman road years ago. You look at some of them, and the Roman road would go over the mountain, and you look at the modern roads and they go around the mountain, or hills as the case may be. And again, very dry. And then we actually ran into some rain. We had one day that we decided, okay, we're going to take off. We're not going to walk today. We had an umbrella. We had rain gear, and we got wet and wetter. And we finally got to our destination. We said, enough's enough. We were not prepared for the deluge that we got that one time. We let the storm system go through. We did a little bit of traveling around the city we were in. It's pretty good size. And we just took a day off. I think we did that 3 times. We took a day off in the middle of our 30-day journey. Back on the road again. The roads, generally speaking, you would walk and focus on 3 feet in front of you, 2 feet in front of you, because everything was so uneven. Even though that looks like it's a fairly even road to walk on, or surface, you had to be very careful. And there was too many times when you're not paying attention and you almost sprain your ankle, or something gets caught down there. And so you're constantly looking at that 2-3 feet in front of you to make sure that you're walking on some solid ground. There's not a pothole or something there that's going to screw you up. There's a rear shot of my backside. I said, Marilyn, take one of me. So I've taken hundreds of hers. But you can see I'm carrying my walking sticks on right hand. I got a little day pack on my back, and I have water both sides. I call myself a water mule, because I had the water for both my wife and I strapped to my waist. Most of the time, the mornings were crisp, clear, and occasionally we got this low scud level that come down, fog. Not often. I'm going to say maybe 3-4 days that we left in the dark. In fact, for the last, and we were there 30 days, I'm going to say for the last 20 days, we were out at least an hour before daylight, just getting an early start on the day. As we get further and further away, we did 3 days across the desert where there was absolutely no trees at all. I can't think of the name of that particular area right now, but it was fairly brutal. Temperatures over 100. We would be stopping about every 5 or 6 kilometers, grab something to eat, sit down, relax. So we would be walking our first hour. We'd walk about 5 kilometers in the morning. Second hour, and from then on the rest of the day, about 4 kilometers an hour. And we would stop 10 or 15 minute breaks here, there, and yonder, sometimes just to sit and relax, sometimes to drink a little bit of water, sometimes to grab a Coke or something to eat. We would have a light breakfast wherever we were leaving, usually orange juice. Figure out what's going on here, because I do have okay. My wife tells me the Mesa in in Spain. She's watching this downstairs on live TV as we're going through this. I get a good critique from her after every one of my shows. But we went through across the mesa, and again, no trees. You'd find one tree and you'd find 5 or 6 people standing under it for the shade. But as we get further away, it became not as hot, maybe in the 80s and 90s rather than the hundreds, but a lot more shade. This is one area where we went down, I'm going to say probably about 40, maybe 50 feet. The option was to walk down another almost half a mile and turn around and come back. And this is one where my wife is coming down. We're getting ready to go into Puerto Marin. And the going down actually got to a point where you would sit down on your butt, put your feet out there, get to the next spot, butt, feet, coming all the way down, because it was almost impossible to go down just with the guide sticks trying to hold yourself up, because it was just really, really unlevel. Really deep 2-3 foot drops off of some of these boulders off to the side. So very treacherous, very slow. And the people behind her, Marilyn, kept saying, yeah, come on, come on. And they said, no, no, no. And then she got down to the very end, and everybody clapped for her. It was really nice. We ran into so many different people along the way. A lot of Irish, a lot of English, Swedes, Germans, Koreans, all sorts of people. We had nice conversations with all of them. Another early morning departure out of this town, and this became fairly normal. We would be in bed by 7, 8 o'clock at night because we had eaten, and that was it. There was nothing else to do. Some cities had some level of sightseeing, but for most cases, no. Now, we called the cow poop that was on the ground landmines, because it's one of those things you do not want to step in, just like you don't want to step on a landmine. So as we're talking with people, and I'm giving presentations, I've given this presentation maybe 3 or 4 times, 3 times for sure, maybe 4. I would talk about the landmines out there, and it was really the cow patties that the animals deposited on the roads as they were walking ahead of us. But we would see horses, we would see cows, we would see, I think a couple times we saw some sheep, a lot of motorcycles, bicycles, a lot of transportation available there. Another early morning. This is a particularly really neat place because our place where we stayed was it was an old mill, and the mill was connected to a small river. And we're in this thing. It's been revamped for tourist accommodations, but we're about 300 feet, about 100 yards away from the main complex. And I think there's 3 rooms out there. So we get there, we get one of the nicer rooms, shower, everything we need is there. It's just we don't have the camaraderie of other people in an area that you could enjoy a glass of wine or some food. So you'd have to walk back and forth across this field. So in this particular case, you had a flashlight that would get you from point A to point B without a problem, and without the landmines, you had to be really careful. A lot of people walking their dogs, more than you would think. It was not an unusual sight to have dogs walking alongside of you. My wife there on the left with her hat down. Here's a case of a bicycle coming by, but sometimes they're little motor scooters. And it's interesting that some of them would ring a bell or a horn, let you know they were there. Others would just come roaring by, hoping to miss you. It was kind of dangerous in many, many regards. Roads sometimes were very wide. Some places actually had little seats that you could sit in. Not many opportunities for that. Some had little refreshment stands along the way that you could, grab a drink. But most of the time we would stop in a small city, go into a little restaurant bar area, get a sandwich. In the morning, our standard was a glass of orange juice. My wife had coffee, and then I had a croissant or I had a Spanish omelet. I love Spanish food. My wife loves Mexican food, and I don't do Mexican. She doesn't do Spanish. So we did very, very well with our limitations. But we got to one place that actually had a Spanish restaurant, and she ate almost everything on the menu. The guy was a chef from San Antonio, Texas, and she just was in hog heaven. It was just amazing to find a Mexican restaurant in Spain that was along the road that we were walking. Another early morning departure. Absolutely no problem with any kind of danger. I think in the course of a year there was one attack but when you have that many people, hundreds of thousands of people walking, and it's the livelihood of that area, it's generally pretty safe. Even 2 hours before dawn, out walking, get a little closer to our destination, and see what my wife has to say now, real quick. Yes, it was her birthday that that she had the Mexican food. We both celebrated our birthdays on the trip, so we took a day off for each one of our birthdays, but not necessarily in the cities that we wanted to, that we planned in advance. But we took, I think, 3 days off the whole time and just had an extra day to ourselves. But we could hear airplanes flying at that point in time. As you're getting a little bit closer to Compostela, Santiago de Compostela, that was our introduction to at least a forest per se. And did I pick the wrong? I hope I didn't do that. I guess I have to go back and pull up another. So here's what we're going to do. Let me see if I can get this other set of slides up real quickly, because I don't want to end that one. I'll come back to that one in just a moment. Let me see here, by production engineer. Can you help me with this next slide setup? I'm not done with the one I'm on. I only have 3 more slides on that, so let's do this. Once we get into Santiago de Compostela, it was pavement the whole way, lots of big buildings, lots of history, and then we get to the church that was under construction. And so I'm going to cancel out of that one, and I need your help, production engineer, to give me my last set of slides here. Somehow I ended up going out of order. Okay. Okay, why am I not getting... Okay, let me see if I can do this here. So I'm going to remove that one. I'm going to remove that one. Okay, production engineer, this should be the only set that's there. Best laid plans. Okay. This should have been the middle set of slides that somehow my error, operator error, that I picked the wrong one to talk about. I was wondering why I got to to Santiago so quickly. Lots of people along the way, as I said, most of them carried their own backpacks, but we chose to have ours delivered. For us, it just was a real creature comfort not to have to worry about that. Again, now we're on a road that other cars travel on. You have to be just a little bit more careful. And it's just interesting walking into these cities, and you see the little town up there, and then you get closer and closer and closer, and then you're in it, and then you're out of it, and that's the same. You turn around, you look, and that's what's behind you. Here's a case where somebody, good entrepreneur, set up a little food stand with some drinks. And we'd sit there maybe 10 minutes, relax. Somebody else would come along, give them our chairs, and move on. Logroño was an interesting place. It was one of 2 places where we stayed where it was a private room. The bathroom wasn't as private. But at least they had men and women separated. The one hostel we stayed in about a week or so before this one, I think my wife got to share the bedroom with 6 other guys, and the shower sharing was literally just a plastic covering separating one shower from another. It was not her cup of tea whatsoever. But Logroño was an interesting place. She'll tell you stories there that people were downstairs fighting all night long out there, and the police came. I don't know whether the police came or not. I may be making that one up. But as you're walking through the towns, they have these outside areas where you can sit down, order something, have a nice meal. And generally speaking, we would have a light breakfast, a fairly light lunch. We'd have 3 meals a day. And then we try to find a place. And the meals were exceptional because we wore these tags around our necks that distinguished us as pilgrims. And we would get passport stamps at a place like Logroño. We would get stamped to say, yeah, we were there. And because I was wearing that, I would get a discount. If I stopped at, like in Pamplona, I stopped at the Hilton, and I got 55% off or something like that for the room for the night. Most of the time, I think our average price of the room was $55. I think the cheapest was around 37. A couple times it was around 70, but most of the time it was around 50, 55, 60, but not rarely above 60, rarely below 40. But for our evening meals, for about $8 US, I could get a 3-course meal and a bottle of wine or a bottle of water, and that was everywhere. It didn't make any difference where we were at along the Camino. My evening meal was a 3-course meal along with wine or water. The next morning, we were leaving Logroño. I walk out the door, and just everything's magic. I'm just looking at, and I had to get my camera out and just take pictures because it just was this scene you're looking at lasted literally 30 seconds, because the next time I took a picture, a lot of the goldish hue, that morning sunshine was gradually decaying away. I have another picture, just not the same quality as this one. In fact, I want to use this somehow on the cover of my book because I just think it's an outstanding photograph. But that was everything. After this was private room, private bath. We had a private room, very nice room, very large room. But my wife shared her bathroom facilities with other women, myself with other men. So going into another city, we were walking along the freeway. There's a big arrow going off to the side telling us that's the direction we need to go in. Never did we feel that we were lost. If you went 15 minutes and didn't see something telling you this is where you're at, this is where you're going, then you'd start to get an uncomfortable feeling. You go another 5 minutes and you start saying to yourself, do I need to back up and go see if I missed something? Because the roads are so well marked that it was very difficult to get lost unless it was nighttime and you just couldn't see. You didn't put your flashlight in the right place. Another morning departure. A lot of people were leaving same time we did. This was not just us leaving by ourselves. Many times we would be out early, maybe not necessarily the first one, but the first couple. And then 1 or 2 or 3, people would pass us, another group would pass us, another group would pass us. And then another half hour later, daylight would start appearing. But we felt there was no place along the way that we ever felt unsafe. Zero. We felt comfortable everywhere. This is that area, the mesa I talked about. That tree to the left was one of the few trees for the next couple, 3 or 4 miles that I think at one point in time we had 6 people standing under it just for the shade. Outside temperature well over 100, and we're walking across this mesa area of Spain. It's about a 3-day walk to get across it. This reminded me of a scene out of an old Western. I can't think of the name of it, but it just seemed to me that I came over the top of the hill and I'm looking down here at this. Once Upon a Time in the West was the name of the movie. And I see these cities out. Now, obviously, this is a much bigger city than back in the 1850s in the Western. But just the vibe I got from somebody coming up over the top of a hill on a horse, and you're seeing a town, obviously an 1850s, 60s, 70s town. But I got that vibe more than a couple times. go through the city and back out on the road again. Now, here they have the green that you can see from something that's there, but a lot of the area had already been harvested. We had a lot of sunflowers, a lot of, I call them wine trees, but grapes, olive trees. Those are the primary ones that we saw. You can see the sunflowers there to the left. It was interesting some days to see the airline contrails in the sky. Some days we saw them, other days, for whatever reason, atmospheric conditions weren't right, too many clouds. But it was, okay, fine, we're going in the same direction the airplanes are going, and that gave us a little bit of comfort. Back on the shorter roads. Burgos is a very large city, a lot to see there. Again, we're leaving about an hour, at least an hour before daylight. And there was universities there, there was churches there, there was just horrendous number of tall buildings. Sorry, I didn't capture my wife's butt there, but sometimes. And I could show you 15 pictures along this way where it looked very, very similar. I chose this one because, whatever reason, it just is representative of what we were walking on. And that shells and the shell in the middle were very difficult to walk on because everything was so uneven. You had to really pick and choose where you actually put your feet. Coming back down into another city, you can see a little bell tower down there dead ahead. My wife's got a little backpack or a day pack on her. I had one on me, and I would have the water and the maps and the book for phone calls and maybe a small medical kit. And then she would carry whatever she needed in hers. We ran across a lot of these old either churches or buildings. Some of them were totally empty. Some of them were, I guess, to some level occupied but not necessarily lived in. People around took care of them. You can't see the city there in the background, but if you follow the road back on down, one of the cities that I had been in disappears into the distance. This is one of the more interesting ones because we're on a Roman road and we're going over the mountain, but you look on the highway map that is sort of one of the ones that we have, and it would show all the commercial traffic going around the hill, like that hill back there in the background. Everything goes around it, but the Roman roads would go pretty much over it. So like, we're going that way, that's where we're going. Going downhill was extremely difficult. If you've never been on a 18-degree slope, that's excessive. Anyway, most of the time the gradients weren't that great, but that was one that I had to take a picture of because that was really and truly a rough one. Another Roman bridge, and I'm getting down to the last slide here. Very, very typical of almost all the pictures you see, the Camino, people out walking with backpacks on their sticks. Now, if I were recommending somebody, say, don't take sticks on your airplane, buy them over there. People leave them because they don't want to take them back. But that is the end of that, and I'm going to come back here and close out our show here in about 30 seconds. We spent 3 or 4 days in Santiago de Compostela. At the end, took a bus trip back down to Rota, Spain. I think 2 days to catch a space aid trip back to the States. I think we've gone a total of about 42 days. I think I ended up for 42 days, just under $5,000 in total cost, and about about $3,500 actually for the 30 days that we spent there. So about $100 a day is what we spent on the trip. So I hope that helps people. If anybody has any questions at all about the Camino de Santiago, send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to give you at least my take on it. Till next week, take care of you all. Bye now.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.